Hey guys, Codeberry's here today, so hope you're all doing well. So I wanted to make this video 2 days ago, but I didn't get a chance, so I'll just do it now. So Bitcoin did have a new low. So on the 19th of May, we had a low of 30,066, and then on June 22nd, so 2 days ago, I think it was at 6 a.m. or I guess 9 a.m. New York time or something. It did make a lower low, so we did get down to 28,600. So somewhere around there. So we did see the continuation of the bearish market. It's not moving very fast, as you can see. And also note the volume here. You can see that the volume here. Whoops, give me a horizontal line. So you can see the volume here was very high, so there's a lot of sell volume. Is there another color here? Something else? What about the pink one? No, that didn't work. Is it pink here somewhere? Okay, so let's just say that's the volume line. So you can see that the volume was very high, so I think it's that number there. So it's saying that day they sold about 32.5 thousand bitcoins, and on the day of the lower low, which actually ended up closing a little bit green, there was only if this had closed red, it would be the same thing, but it would only been about I think that says 5,000 bitcoins. Or does that say 9,000? Okay, so 9,000. So it was definitely almost 4 times less what this one was. So you can see that it moved lower on low volume. So that's not a very good sign. So we're on the day chart here. So as far as the RSI, it did kind of, it had a little bit of bullish convergence. Bullish convergence you can see here, but only based on the low points though, because like if you were to take this low point here, and since they're so spaced apart, I don't think it really matters, because usually it has to be point to point, like right next to each other. But let me show you here. So there was the low. So as the price moved higher, as the price moved lower, the RSI denoted by the yellow line, it moved higher, right? But the thing is, it's kind of far apart, but it could it could have worked, because look, we did see a run after that, at least for a few days. So it might have worked if you would have taken that. Otherwise, this is a day chart, so nothing here is too for sure. Again, this is kind of like a short-term time frame. We did have some momentum to the upside. Now let me remove all that. So we had after that drop, obviously, there was a little bit of, after a new low, there was some action back to that middle of the Keltner. I kind of used it as the average price, so that's a Keltner channel. That's the default one, so you'll see 3 lines on it. I've changed my middle color to yellow. So it's pretty much close to that line now, so it's kind of like, well, what should we do now? We're back at that center line, because you basically want to trade around that line. You don't want to be trading when it's close. Some people look for breaks of the center line to the upside. I mean, you can, but look how many times it gets rejected, right? So I wouldn't really use that as a for sure signal. We did have a little bit of bullish momentum here, but could we be running out of steam here for the bullish momentum? Because have a look, the shorter term indicators are starting to get overbought. So So you can see where the average overbought lines are. So if you take this one as the highest one, this one is as the lowest one. So it's somewhere in the middle, maybe a little bit closer to the lowest. But it is getting overbought. So perhaps the blue one maybe wants to come a little bit higher, maybe not. But definitely the shorter term indicator is starting to get overbought, so it will be looking for perhaps a break of overbought back to heading into neutral, and then look for the break of neutral heading into oversold. So keep an eye on that. Nothing else really here. Default MACD might be looking for, because this was a kind of a deep cross up, and we had a little bit of crossing down. Like, I don't think that would be crossing up for too long. We'll just have to see what the weekly says. So we'll move to the weekly. Weekly, perhaps it still wants to continue down. Because where are we now? I think that's at, yeah, 44, so a little bit below neutral. We did cross neutral to the downside somewhere around here. So we are still heading down. You can check that on the monthly, but here it could be a slow move to the downside for a while. You know, several months. Could be trading up to that yellow line, back down, and eventually just kind of, as the months go by, a little bit lower, like you can barely notice it, and then eventually it might get a quick drop back down here. So the EMA 9 is up here. Perhaps it may, I guess, as it makes a new low, it may come back up. May come back up a little bit. We do have the shorter term indicators on the weekly are oversold, so perhaps we might get a little bit of more action to the top here, perhaps keeping that trend line alive. Actually, let me just remove these to make it more clear. So the downwards trend, it's kind of like this, and then it's like this, right? So perhaps we want to maybe come back up here and then perhaps come back down. So we'll have to watch that. Again, that's not for sure. That's just looking at the previous trend lines of the shorter term indicators and the RSI. So pretty much we did talk about the volume. Here, like, perhaps again, as we said, we might have seen some bullish momentum, but again, we did have a fake out, I guess, after that drop made a new low. This could be turning red again, or it could be heading down for a while. So pretty much there's nothing really to go off here. We'll go to the monthly, and then once we go to the monthly, it's more clear. So you can see the default MACD hasn't even crossed yet. We discussed this before. We've discussed either previous videos if you want to go in depth on everything. I won't go in depth because if you're watching the channel, then you'll get everything from the previous videos. Again, we did come a little bit closer to that middle Keltner channel, but again, it's still a little bit below, and if the month closes red, then that line will move down as the new month, if it continues red as well. So the line can move down. Perhaps the shorter term indicators are starting to get a little bit oversold. So we could see a little bit of momentum to the upside, perhaps something like this. Actually, no, not like that. Where's the 2018? Yeah, so you can see what it did here. The shorter term indicators. It kind of went down, and then it kind of went up, and then it went down, up, and then super down, right? So just have a look at the price action. So even as it came really, yeah. So basically, it even though it came up, it still wanted to continue down, and that was after it came up after the MACD already crossed down. Yeah, that's yeah. I guess that's pretty much the same as what's going on now. Because have a look. We're here. So maybe we could come up, maybe we could just continue down, right? It all depends, right? But perhaps we did, let's just say we did want to come up a little bit, and perhaps that would be next month. Or the month after, it depends, right? How low wants to go, how much breather wants to get. But look where it crossed down, so it didn't, the default MACD didn't cross down till, where is that? That line had already come up and come down. So maybe it could be similar to what's going to happen here. Again, the default RSI, the yellow line, it's still quite high. So there's definitely another maybe 35% more, 35 to 40% more of a move to happen. But the thing is, it did definitely decrease in price a lot. So if you were to take this peak to that peak and divide and find the fraction, again, we've discussed that, but I'm still thinking that support is all the way down here, all the way down there. That's where the main support areas are. So again, this blue line will come down a little bit, then we could see something around here if it wants to move down for a little while, like here. Whoops. You can see that blue channel, if we can zoom in on it, it did move down for a little while, and it did get below that. So if that was to move down for a little while and we wanted to get below that, then, you know, that's what I was saying about 2 to 6K. But it all depends, though. That can all change depending on many things. These inflections also are much sharper. So you can see that that's a much steeper inflection on the default MACD. So you can look at the slopes and see for yourself. But have a look at that. If you were to calculate the slope of that, it would be less than this. See? Look at that angle, and look at that angle. This one is headed down to negative infinity at a steeper slope, while as this one is more more horizontal. It's more about like 180 degrees, and this one's more sloped down. So perhaps this could be actually breaking that support, that RSI support that we've seen. And again, we did talk about the bearish divergence to negative infinity from that peak to that peak that we didn't have that time. A little bit, but this one's pretty steep because you can see how much the price jumped, and we do have a lot of bearish divergence there. So that's why perhaps that slope is so steep. So we'll just move to Ethereum now. As we mentioned in the previous video, or the videos, that Ethereum is lagging behind Bitcoin as far as the bearish momentum is just starting, because you can see that the faster MACD, the faster MACD hasn't even crossed yet, whereas on Bitcoin it has. So there's still a lot of room for this to cross down, and it hasn't even crossed down yet. So that could definitely give you an idea of where this is going. Support is all the way down here. These are some really easy trades because one, there's so much volume, and two, there's so much volatility. So these were really easy to calculate, whereas like stocks with low volume, some days they have high volume, they're kind of harder to predict. Also, if they're brand new tickers, they're still making their way. They got to collect data before they can calculate the algorithm, so they're harder to calculate. But when you have instruments like this, there's so much data, and there's so much volume, so everything works out perfectly. That's the thing. If you want to use algorithms like these, you have to have a lot of volume for it to work, and this is perfect because there's so much volume flowing in and out all the time, which makes it easy to use, especially when there's so much volatility. You can see how high these lines are coming up and how far they drift away from the moving averages, right? That's how you can measure the volatility. That's one way. Well, two ways. But let's just take an example of the EMA9 or the EMA2. You can see how far at this point they had actually gone away from those lines. So the EMA2, they crosses up, it crosses down, crosses up, crosses down. So it's the same thing with the EMA9. Crosses up, it crosses down, has to close below again. When it drifts really far away, you can see how much volatility it is based on how far the distance is. So you can see at that point, or that, sorry, not that point, basically it's the same. But you can see how much distance there was when that had gone up that high. Perhaps it was a little bit closer, but still there's a lot of room there. But let's just talk about the daily first. So it did have a new low as well. I think our previous low was here on the 23rd of May. So it is kind of moving slow, like a month at a time for a new low, which is kind of slow. But I guess that's how the monthly works. What's the low on that? 1730? Is that right? I guess that's right. 1730. Excuse me. And the low on this is 1700. So we just came down 30 points lower. Nothing too significant, but it is a sign that it is wanting to move down. You can see the slopes here of that middle band of that Keltner still slanted to negative infinity. These Keltners and these moving averages are all slanted down. Not significant signals, but just a trend as far as the daily goes. The default RSI starting to come down. Maybe it might diverge lower while it moves up, so we'll have to see. We do have the shorter term indicators coming up around neutral. The blue line hasn't really got back up to neutral, so perhaps we might see that come up a little bit higher for maybe a little bit more bullish momentum for short-term trades, not the long-term scenario. So it kind of matches with this. We do see a little bit of bullish momentum, perhaps a little bit wanting to come up. Perhaps the histogram wants to come up a little bit, right? Maybe that wants to come up around there or something, and perhaps come down. That's not perfect at all. I was going for that histogram. Maybe it would come up a little bit for the short term. That's what I was going for, but perhaps maybe it doesn't want to, so we'll have to see. At least there is on the signal lines itself and the zero line, there's a pretty decent like short-term bullish momentum that might be starting. We do have the default MACD starting to inflect. Not yet. I think if you look at that closely, it's still pointing down, but maybe we might see a flat line or an inflection. So watch for, why does that line keep doing that? Watch for the zero slope and then the inflection if you're looking for a trade for bull, short-term bull or something. But it already has started, so we'll have to see. Again, obviously the low, so the trade would have been when at least when the lines went from oversold to heading back into neutral. That's where the momentum was. That would have been a little bit late, but it's still early in as far as the daily candles goes, because have a look. You can see where's a vertical line here, so where did it cross? Here. So we'll look at that point. Where was it? Still pretty early, right? So we still moved up at least 200 points. So when you're at that point, then you want to, when you're at that point on that vertical line, that's where you want to move down to the shorter time frames to try to get closer to it, where the inflection is going to occur. We'll just go over the weekly. Oh yeah, we have to talk about Dogecoin still too, because that one had a really deep new low. But weekly, same idea here. Oh, actually, well, I guess we have this one crossing down, which is kind of recent. End of May, beginning of June, it crossed down. So it's been a few weeks. We discussed that earlier. We do have some red histogram now forming. We didn't have any red histogram for a long time. So those are pretty deep histograms as far as deep goes. But again, we are still far from the zero line, so these lines are far from the zero line, because you can see when it was near the zero line, and perhaps these this histogram might come up for a little bit of a breather. But again, they're still far away from the zero line, so if this run was going to be starting, so here's the zero line. Have a look at where these all this data is, where I'm moving the mouse. It's closer to the zero line, which is exact. If you look on the axis here, there's numbers here on the y-axis, I think. Yes, the y-axis. There's a 0.00 at some point, which I can't get exactly, but it's like somewhere around there. You can see how close the data was, but now, and the signal line, but now look where the signal line is. It's way up here, right? So for it to retrace to even 0 and not even talk about coming below to negative is a long way. And that's why we said that the MACD support was here at that point. Last point. That's the last point that had an inflection. So second one would be down here, and the third one would be like around there at the zero line. So that still could be moving down for a while. A little bit of shorter term indicators perhaps getting oversold. Maybe want to come up for a breather, maybe back to that default RSI, maybe then see if it wants to continue a little bit up, and then maybe continue back down, or no up, just maybe come up for a breather, or just continue down. These are just scenarios. But again, they're at neutral, so it's this one's just had crossed down neutral this week. So it hasn't been crossing down neutral for a long time. Last time it crossed neutral to the downside was in 2019, I guess. So it was a long time ago. And back then, we were in the 2Ks, right? No, sorry, that's not Bitcoin. We were, around $100, so there's a lot of room, I still think, to the downside. Monthly is just, it hasn't even, same idea. Oh, well, I guess we have this big signal here. Default RSI crossing overbought, down, heading into neutral, so neutral's here. And that's a pretty big signal. And neutral's around there, so it hasn't even crossed a neutral to the downside yet. So watch that. Shorter term indicators starting to get oversold. Perhaps it wants to come down lower, because you can see where these lines, how low they were, and that where the blue lines get before it comes up for a breather. So you can see if the blue, let's just use this as an example, if the blue line is at like 53 or 54 or whatever, and the blue line last time came down to 19, 25, then this has more than half to run down. So if it came down from 4 something, then it has another half to go down at least. More than that, I think. So that could be pretty correct. That's just an example. These haven't crossed down yet. Faster MACD hasn't even crossed down. We have support here, MACD support 1, and then no cross here at all yet. So this could be crossing down for a long time. Hasn't even started yet. Hasn't even inflected yet, which is quite interesting. That's actually pretty crazy. Not even an inflection yet, right? Like you'd think maybe we'd be like over here by now, but no, not even. So that could be heading down for a while. I did see an article of that Vitaki guy, the owner of Ethereum, the creator, talking about going short on crypto. That was, when did I see that? Maybe a month ago? Less than a month ago, but that's pretty crazy that the creator would go short. Maybe because he wants to short it himself. I guess he wants to make monies both ways. But that's pretty crazy though. Wanting to short your own asset, right? We did get a touch of that EMA 9. Exactly. On that run. So yeah, it's kind of a... If that happens, usually we get a little bit of a retrace. But I don't use that as a signal, but some people do. They use that as a strong signal, like if it hasn't touched the EMA in a long time, and when it does, then they go for a scalp long. So we'll see what happens here. Oh wait, how much volume was there? We didn't talk about that. Compared to the last low. Yeah, so same as Bitcoin. So there was a lot less volume on that lower low, which isn't a good idea. Good sign. So we'll talk about Dogecoin. Does this have the data? Yes, it does, I think. I thought it did have everything. Okay, yeah. So we did get a new low, a lower low at least. It hasn't been this low in a while. So the low was 15 cents. I believe it was 15 cents. What was the last low? 22 cents. So it's a little bit more to the downside compared to the other pairs. So that was the last low, and this one was the new low. So more significant here, a significant move to the downside for Dogecoin. Even with Elon Musk trying to pump it, it's still heading down. We did get a low here, oversold RSI here, default. Did come up for a breather, so perhaps we'll have to see what next week brings us. We might be heading back down just due to this shorter term indicators getting overbought. We'll have to see a little bit of bullish momentum here on the low, obviously on the lows. Actually, how volatile was that? Yeah, that was pretty volatile to the downside. Where's the last one? There's the last one. Pretty volatile. Let's see. Almost actually got about the same, maybe a little bit more, just a tiny bit. And that was, I guess, yeah, it came down, and then momentum up. And then just a bit of a trade here. Again, if you're day trading, that's kind of the only way to do it, is to use the volatility. Well, the thing is, it did get faked out quite a bit here. But yeah, I guess the thing is with day trading, is very risky, right? Those can break. I've seen these fail many times. It just depends. It's a hard gig. But there was volatility to the downside, and I guess they just took the crosses here and just held them. So same idea. 15. How deep was that? Is that it here? 20. We said 20 seconds something, right? Yeah, it looks like the best go is on the 4 hour. So yeah, you can see that if you want to learn about day trading, pretty much we were here. We were right at the average price area. Then we got a breakdown. Quick break, and we got a low. Test of the low here. And then we had a retrace past that average price coming up high. So now you can see we're like, hey, well, we come up high now after that. Well, I guess it's interesting now at this exact 4 hour point candle, we've come So yeah, we're here now. So if you missed that, just watch it again. And then we're here now. We've come up high above that middle channel, and there's like, as far as volatility to the upside, we haven't had that much volatility to the upside since here. Almost, we were not getting there yet, but here, that was on the 2nd of June, so we're starting to get up there, right? So we might see some bearish momentum starting here, perhaps, and it is a 4 hour, so we can see the RSI 4 hours coming up high. Let's just, why not, let's just quickly check, because I didn't do the 4 hour on Bitcoin, so let's just look at it quickly. It didn't have as much, again, as we said, it didn't have as much as a steep drop as Doge. But we've been higher recently, so I don't think this one really matches that much. And this one, same thing, we're not even up here yet. Doesn't really want to get up there, I guess. Maybe because the longer term shorts look pretty good. Okay, so we're on Dogecoin. Yeah, so we did say we are getting perhaps some bearish momentum starting or coming up to the starting of it soon. We'll have to check the daily for that. Might see a little bit more. We could see a fake out here. Nothing too for sure on the daily yet. Shorter term indicators starting to get overbought. Default RSI coming up neutral, pretty close to neutral. Volume fading out, though, notice that. Let's see what the weekly's doing. Yeah, so that you can see on that low, as we discussed, that the volume was on that new low, volume was fading out. It's not a good sign. There could be a quick drop coming soon. But let's just go over the support. Weekly support is here, 7 cents. I think we talked about that before. So if that was to be support, if we got there, then 15 area, actually no, this would be resistance area. So we could be trading in that area for a long time. That's what we said. If it's slow, we don't know if it is, because look, this is just starting to cross down. So Doge could be moving out of the fastest at this point, because I think even Ethereum already crossed down. That's what we discussed, that it crossed down a couple weeks ago. Yeah, Ethereum already crossed down. So if Doge is just crossing down, that's not good, because that means there would be a lot of momentum still to come. No really any support until there. If that was, there's no inflections really, a little bit here. Nothing really too for sure, except down there. Zero line here is quite far. Whoops. Where is the zero? Zero's all the way down here, so could be going down for a while. A little bit of coming up oversold on the shorter term indicators, so perhaps we might see a little bit of up movement. Okay, well, monthly hasn't even crossed down, so I guess Doge is moving the slowest here, because we said Ethereum had already crossed down from overbought, heading back into neutral. Yeah, so it looks like then there could be a lot of room more for Doge to go back down. That's why I was thinking maybe the sub penny back into the decimals, because if that was strong support, then we definitely have a long way to go. If that was strong RSI support, then we, this is at 80, right? More than 80, 80.4. Then, 40, 3. It's just like a medium line, right? Then there's a long way to go down. There could be, if the low is 15, then you know that could be possible, because these haven't even crossed down. Faster MACD hasn't even crossed down. The monthly hasn't even started. The default hasn't even inflected for that much. Did this one inflect? Yeah, it had to inflect. So we do have an inflection here. Support monthly is I don't think you can even see it. You can't even see it. It's here. That's the most left red candle area where the red candles are grouping, showing some areas of resistance and support. So that kind of would be the strong support area all the way down there. And median range supports are somewhere in here. Let's just say this peak to the low, that low, somewhere in the middle would be like a strong support area. So this could be still heading down, but that's pretty it's a pretty big wick for that month, because you can see it's up here and before it was down there. So that's quite a big wick. We do have the volume decreasing. So keep your eye on that, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.